Hello and welcome to this video. Now this video is in a complete version containing all the 4 parts, and I've also posted them as separate 4 parts just in case you have issues of time. So I would strongly suggest that you go through all the videos to get a complete download and understanding of how this model works, and so that you can have some great takeaways to implement them in practice. Please also take a note that whether you are a CEO or you are a manager, a senior manager, a team leader, or a supervisor, technically you are a leader. So I would strongly suggest that you go with this premise and go through the rest of the video and the videos to get a complete understanding. Leadership today and in the years to come is a major global crisis. One is about the effectiveness of the leaders that we have, the availability of the leaders, and how effective the leadership development programs are in preparing leaders. So if you see, there has been a great progress in terms of academic and research and publications trainings, consulting businesses in the areas of leadership, culture, and employee engagement. But if you look at the practice, not much of this knowledge has really transferred to the workplace. So is it to infer that the content and the academic the research is not appropriate? Is it that they have not been properly implemented? We will see through this in detail in the next few minutes. But if you go to the Gallup's engagement studies over the last 20 years, we are still at a global average of 15%, the engaged population. The employees who are engaged globally are just about 15%. Though some of the nations like the USA have made great strides in progressing, crossing over 30%. But why only 10, 15 or 30%? When the potential is 100%, it has to move much further. So this is one indicator that the theories and the research has not really contributed, or maybe at a practice level it's not been effectively implemented, understood or implemented. But if you look at a research study undertaken by Brandon Hall Group, only 18% of organizations say that their leaders are very effective at meeting business goals. Just 18%. And there are a few other collaborating research that also talk about 80% of the leaders are not so effective. In fact, in India, there's been a research in the technology and various other industries which has come out with a finding saying that 80% of Indian firms are already facing huge shortage of leadership. And a PricewaterhouseCoopers, the PwC, has revealed in another study saying that the success rate of hiring managers with leadership skills is just about 25%. They say that they are not finding appropriate talent with leadership skills. And there's one other aspect of this, which is, and it's quite alarming, which is that 39% of leaders who were fired during the last year, during 2019, were on grounds of unethical behaviors. So this really sets an indicator as to how effective leaders are. In fact, if you are one of those leaders and in your firm, in whichever role you are, you find some issue with a customer, finding issues with your products or services, or you have issues in your consistency and predictability of your production or delivery of service, or if you have issues of vendor issues, or if you have talent retention issues, or your inability to get the best talent. If any of these issues are there, which means it should only say is that there is some issue of leadership effectiveness in your organization, and which means that there is a huge opportunity for you to leverage from this video and take some have some takeaways to implement at your place. Let's take a look at the leadership development activities that are happening around the world. And there's a Deloitte study which says that a whopping 87% of companies aren't effective at building global leaders. There have been efforts, but 87% companies have failed. Also, there's another collaborating study by Mercer and Metal, which reveals that the ROI on the time spent on leadership development is alarmingly, this is a negative one, which means that minus 68%. It's the leadership development is quite wayward. If you look at most of the academics and the books that have been published, most of it have been referring to the habits or traits or qualities of leaders, and that the misleading part is that leaders have a choice to act as a leader or not. These are very, very misleading inputs. So once you go through the entire model that I'm presenting to you, you will get to know really what's going wrong and what kind of an approach that we should be taking. So in my model, I'm suggesting a very integrated and a holistic model covering all the aspects of business, so that it's not so much individual trait and quality kind of focused as it is on business, as an integrated approach. And as you go through the subsequent part of the video, you'll get to know about it. Thank you. Hi there, ladies and gentlemen. This is T.S. Babu, and I'm a specialist in human capital and organizational transformation, especially on the cultural side. And my expertise also goes into business process re-engineering and several areas, because it's been close to 4 decades that I have been into passionate kind of engagements in various leadership roles, and I've had the satisfaction of making a huge impact. And there was one area which I thought I should give you some breakthrough insights, which I'm going to do in the later part of the video, and in the other parts, in the other videos that you're gonna see. And that is about the will side of the organization. I guess you all understand where I'm heading to, right? So during early 2000, when Gallup has made its study, and they have come out with a revelation that only 20% of the global workforce is engaged, and which means that about 80% is not engaged, right? I mean, either not engaged or disengaged. The disengaged guys are gonna eat up a bit of the not engaged also. So net on net, we are talking about below 50% kind of a productivity. And what have you in the rest of the research of Gallup, what they've come up with is that if an employee is highly charged and engaged, and he's very passionate about work, the kind of thank God it's Monday types, So those guys would turn out anything of 122% of the capability, which is about 20% more than what their maximum capability is. And we're talking about a situation where everybody, in an aggregate underperforms. Now, Gallup had also come up along with, a few other top-notch consulting organizations like A1 Hewitt, Mercer, Hay Groups, Deloitte. They've come up with various very similar kind of levers of engagement as to what could enhance the engagement of employees and how to actually leverage this huge opportunity. And at the same time, it's not irrelevant for me to also mention that the operational excellence revolution that was taking up right from 1970s towards the end of 90s, they've also realized that unutilized talent is actually a huge waste than any of the other 7 ways that there are 8 types of waste, which is and excess transportation, excess of inventory, excess of motion, excess of defects, excess of wait period, and overproduction, overprocessing. Well, these remain the 7 initially listed out wastages. The 8th one comes up, the human capital. So that became unutilized talent was stated to be the eighth and one of the most critical waste. And little later, there were some pillars of WCM, which is world-class manufacturing, and they had come up with a pillar that employees need to be motivated. Now, HR knows what gives employees the right motivation, but there are a lot of these power and constraints within an organization where HR stands helpless and they take the brunt from the rest of the organization. And as to whatever, the leadership would not give them the adequate bandwidth in terms of delegation or empowerment, or even making some major changes or shifts in the way they operate. But still, it is HR that takes the brunt. Why is our attrition rate high? Why are people leaving? Why people don't come? Why is the productivity so low? Why is absenteeism so high? All of these things, and HR has to be a very silent kind of a spectator to this. So therefore, I've been over the close to about 15 years, the last 15 years, I've been actively working on this area of culture and engagement. And right now, I have a model that will give you real insights into this. Though Gallup had come up with a lot of those levers of engagement, and all HR and organizations have done the bit in working on those levers within the constraints, within whatever the compelling frameworks that existed, but not much headway has happened, because in the last year's engagement survey, what has come out is that the progress has been less than kind of 10%, which is close to 28 or 30%. That too depends upon geographies. They said the US is high, South America is a little bit high, India is high, but the rest of the world not so great. Kind of 25, 26 to 30% has been the range, anything of 22 to 30 or 34, right? So in 20 years time, though, these insights of engagement, which is what is that code that will engage your workforce, was shared, not much headway has happened, which is why I have over the last few years, I've been working on this, experimenting a few of these in quite a few organizations. And today I want to share this winning approach that will hugely or substantially give you positive results if you go ahead and implement. These are not things that very alien and very different and no rocket science. These are things that that I've got all of them well aligned together into one framework and a model. All right, so let's go see what this model is. So if you see the model here, which is called the Organizational Synergistic Ecosystem, because it really builds in an ecosystem, and if you see centrally, all the 6 key elements actually create a delta or a synergy to actually make that impact strategically through this model, and really enhance the performance and the value of human capital in an organization. And you will see those 6 very strategic and key elements that are really going to make an impact and create the synergy or the ecosystem or the delta I was telling you. And they are, the first piece is the apex level alignment that comes from the aspiration of the business leaders or promoters or owners, shareholders. And then the ideology and the ideological framework, towards customer, towards shareholder, towards every other stakeholder. And the core values of the business, from where we're going to draw the behavioral frameworks and all of that. And the second piece is about the business strategy, because business strategy is not very alienated. It's very integral, because that's the framework under which the human capital needs to operate and maximize the stakeholder value. The third element is the leadership, which, as you know, when you're talking about people, leadership is very critical. So is culture. So we have this fourth piece, which is the cultural excellence. And then we have the organizational design, how the design is going to help and aid in bringing about this delta. And finally, to calibrate and accelerate performance through stimulation or motivation of the human capital. What are all those stimulants or stimulators or motivators? So all of these together, they're so well aligned here, and that's how we get the synergy. In most organizations, we would have perhaps had, some work towards leadership, something about culture, something about engagement. But unless all of this is holistically dealt with, and unless they are all wired and as an integrated manner, we really can't derive the delta or the synergy or the ecosystem. So this is how this model is built upon, and we're going to part of this video, we're going to see more details about each of these aspects.